All right, so welcome to the January 8th meeting of the Public Property Naming Committee. We have enough for a quorum. Mr. Johnson, will you call the roll?
Ben Ring, Ramsey Cohen,
Here.
Shayna Love, Aaron Streeter, Jack Neely,
Here.
Sam Brown, Lori Deathridge,
Present.
Sam Maynard,
Here.
Deidre Harper,
Here.
Brian Berry, Jonathan Ball, Tommy Smith.
Here.
6 present.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. The last time we met was in May, hard to believe, but it's been a little bit. But Mr. Johnson included the minutes from that meeting, so part of our agenda is to approve those. So is there a motion to approve the minutes from May 2022?
Approve the motion for it.
Okay, first and a second.
I'll second it.
All right, I have a second. Any discussion about the minutes from that meeting? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so new business. Today we have a request Mr. Johnson, will you read the request?
4A is a request to add the honorary name Asylum District to an unnamed road from Blackstock Avenue to Ramsey Street.
Thank you, sir. We have the applicant here. Would you like to say a few words about the application? Give us some context?
Yeah, I'll let Rick.
Okay.
Just do that.
Sure, I guess. That's fine.
Hello, members of this esteemed panel. My name is Rick Damon. I retired from the city years ago. I've got a little consulting business now, so I'm helping Bernadette Scott with some of these matters. This application we have today for the Asylum District came about because the West family is trying to develop that area down there around Blackstock. And I talked to Mr. Neely about this before too. The old asylum used to be on the hill where LMU Law School is today. There's also City Hall. And so that's all kind of gone by the wayside. My understanding, the old Asylum Avenue used to start up at Lerner Lofts area on Day Street and Wall and Rancho Stories. And it's also very near the West businesses. And so, you used to go down Wall Avenue, Asylum Avenue, and then cross over, and then just go west. And eventually that was renamed Western Avenue, the name Asylum completely dropped off the face of the earth. They renamed the whole building. So the word Asylum hasn't been used in years. The West family's down there. The original address of one of their buildings is 801 Asylum. Didn't really want to go to a name change. It's really just a one direction named road under Western Avenue. If you went over there and looked at it, there's just no building difference. No things there. So we didn't really want to go there. And so we thought maybe the historic district would be an idea because that would have been the area that would have supported the old asylum that was in place. Of course, that's later at the Tennessee School for Deaf, and Jack knows way more about this than I do. That's why he's quoted. So we looked in the application. So I guess that's the genesis of it. We're just trying to get that name back on the books, and the fact that was the asylum area to begin with, just to try to get that back again.
Thank you. Is there any other speakers that are signed up to speak? No? Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for including some of that history in the packet. The other item on our agenda is, as you remember, this committee had some suggestions on what to add to the application, so we'll discuss that next, but a lot of the context really helps. So with that said, I'll open the floor for any discussion. Do any committee members have some questions or for either the applicant or discussion about the application?
Yeah, I do. In full disclosure, I think 20 years ago wrote a column in Metropulse proposing that street, which at that time was not unnamed but was often called Western. The problem was that Western Avenue is down here and it's also up here. So people would often, for the nightclubs down there that still had the Western address, they would drive back and forth on the Western Avenue Viaduct and couldn't find it because it was down there. And I said, why don't we just call that Lower Street by its original name, which was Asylum Avenue? And that was the street that runs right in front of the buildings you're talking about is the unnamed street, and that was Asylum Avenue. I thought it'd be a great name for a great address for a nightclub. But But of course, the asylum was the old, what we now know as the Tennessee School for the Deaf. That was what was at the, what's now LMB Law School. I might ask why can we not call it Asylum Avenue District? Because I think this is more about Asylum Avenue than the asylum itself. By the time we get there, there were a lot of other things. The asylum, so-called, was up on the hill, and it was kind of a self-contained school up there.
So call it Asylum Avenue District?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think we go with
Yeah.
that. It was kind of, we want to go with Asylum Avenue to begin with. Jack Brown's contrary to the rules of the committee.
I also think too, yeah, I think too, it's interesting the way words kind of change their meaning, because asylum used to be known as a safe place to hang out, and then it's kind of changed into, you know, what it is now, what people perceive it as. But I kind of like it going back to the original, which,
Yeah. That was, by the way, the reason they changed the name of the street. I think it was 1923 or so, they decided that asylum had a different meaning than it had back in the
yeah,
1840s and 50s, and so this is called Western
Yeah.
now, so it was that, and combined with Wall also, which is
right.
One of the things that, just to kind of your comment around referring to it as avenue, one of the rules for the application is to not use any type of current road type nomenclature such as boulevard, street, way, or avenue. So I think that's probably why the avenue was left off and district was used instead. So if you think of this being an honorary name as opposed to an actual street name was used those more common suffixes, if you will.
even if avenue is an adjective as opposed to a noun, because the noun in the phrase
Well,
is district.
I'm not suggesting that or proposing that, or disagreeing with your suggestion. I'm just hypothesizing maybe why avenue was left off. Is that-
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So they're just following rules. So are you suggesting that be considered?
I'm thinking avenue, considering it's in that phrase, is an adjective as opposed to a noun.
Okay.
Because district is the noun.
All right.
See if city council ever would make an exception for this purpose, because it is the Asylum Avenue had a meaning and identity that's apart from the asylum, and this is the Asylum Avenue. Went down by the old iron foundry and the first brewery in Knoxville. All that stuff was down there, and this is kind of just part of Asylum Avenue as opposed to the asylum itself, kind of like Market Square Historic District. You know,
All right.
it's that's has a district is the main noun there.
My only question would be for, maybe Karen, you could help with this, whether there's any potential confusion with fire or police or traffic, including that avenue and honorary name?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I've been debating in my head if we could. I know we couldn't do Asylum Avenue, which worked with Asylum Avenue District, if that's confusing. If someone proposed that as a road name, we wouldn't allow it, honorary name. No, I don't know that the public property naming committee ordinance is specific enough in the regulations. I'm hesitant to suggest that, just out of caution in case there would be an issue. If someone saw the sign, especially given that the street is unnamed at this time, they would see that it wouldn't be a street name that 911 would have in their database to respond to.
But given, sorry, Ms.
So
Glenn.
it's an honorary, does it have to be an, it's an honorary district, right? So if this is conflicts with what we have to do with avenue or drive or road and things, does,
Yeah, so if the proposed name was just Asylum Avenue, we would recommend that name not be used because that would be an existing road type.
And why is that a problem? If you could just expand on that.
It could be confusing if someone were to see that street sign, even though it's an honorary name, you'll have that sign posted. And if they would call 911 and say, I'm at the corner of Asylum Avenue and Blackstock Avenue, they're not going to find them because Asylum Avenue is not
Honorary names are
Yeah,
not listed.
are not listed, exactly. So, I'm hesitant to say Asylum Avenue District would be
Sorry,
okay.
just, if she can finish. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm hesitant to recommend Asylum Avenue District. Asylum District, there's no problem because there's no road type included with that. But I'm just suggesting caution with adding avenue in the
But
name.
there wouldn't necessarily be a road sign, though, that would say Asylum Avenue. There would be a sign that would say Honorary Asylum Avenue District. Because we're not applying for the street name, so there wouldn't be a street sign posted there.
Am I incorrect if there's a brown sign? Is
There would be an
not? Yeah,
honorary
there's a
sign
that's posted.
listed alongside the road sign
Okay.
that says Asylum Avenue District.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether avenue causes confusion or not, there would be a sign
Okay.
to supplement.
I was just
Yeah.
curious because there's no signage down there at all right now. So this is something that would be put up as part of this process.
But to your point, and to maybe connect a couple things, if someone were in need of emergency services, they would be able to see Asylum Avenue District.
Right, so
Yeah,
in theory, that's
Yeah.
different enough.
okay.
But I have known that people tend to call 911 and just say, I'm at Blackstone, whether it would be Avenue Drive Road, right? There's
Right.
5 different greens,
Right.
and, people just, I'm on Emory, are you on West Emory, East Emory? Nobody uses the full name, so I'm just putting it out there to,
To me,
I
that,
like this Island District better, just from a standpoint of safety.
that question raises the issue that this street needs a name. It doesn't have a name. It's still a nameless street if it has an honorary district name. I think it needs a name, and I would argue for city council or whatever, that it should be named something different from Western Avenue. And maybe have it officially on the emergency vehicle records as something like Asylum Avenue. So that's not our job today, but yeah, Asylum District, my only issue with it is that it refers to the asylum as opposed to Asylum Avenue. And that's, the asylum is, what, a quarter of a mile away, so this is not really the Asylum
Okay.
District.
I understand the distinction now.
Would they have to redo their application if they wanted to add avenues since it's not on?
I don't think so. We have some flexibility to recommend to council what this body believes is, we can amend it on the fly as long as there's no objection from the applicant.
No.
He made a good point, though. You talk about the asylum somewhere else, this is asylum district, so it's really still like, this is asylum district, but the asylum is somewhere else.
Right.
So,
As regards to the sign and stuff, but if somebody is having an emergency, I would assume that the Asylum Avenue, Honorary Asylum Avenue District would be on the same sign as Blackstock, because that's the one that runs this way. So if someone is standing right there, they would say Blackstock and Asylum Avenue, which would give it a definite location, And is there any other street called Asylum Avenue in Knoxville?
Yeah, there is not another street called Asylum, so there wouldn't be that confusion, but the 911 office would not have a center line for Asylum, so it just delays things a little bit if they call and said I'm at Blackstock Avenue and Asylum Avenue. If they just read Asylum Avenue and omitted district, they wouldn't be able to pinpoint that location because they wouldn't have it in their map.
So two things, one is a separate sign, it's a ground sign, it won't be on the same post as the Blackstock, it'll be separate. I'm pretty sure it'll be a separate thing here. I think the sign shop will put their own post, it's a different looking sign, I don't think it can fit on the Blackstock sign. So you won't have it together.
Right.
As far as the name goes, Jack, we talked about that, Scott, bringing that right now. I mean, we may try to do that eventually, but there's a little matter of parking lot, T-Dot's property there. It's kind of in play now. You've got the Sampson Sports Fields nearby there. There's some things going on there that we're trying to let play out a little bit before we get on the road. We very well may try to rename that Main Street to Asylum Avenue. Simply, I think that'd be a good idea. But we're trying to wait and see how that all plays out for that market. But that's the other joiner on the other side of the T-Dot. So it's a little more complicated than the planning commission, as you know, and the city councils. it's a little more complicated trying to get a street name change than this route. And we're hoping to open here soon, we'd like to have some way to tell people where they are.
I appreciate the history behind the naming, because I didn't really know, and I do agree, when I thought of the name, it did not make me think how you all are trying to, I guess, like rebrand what Asylum is. So I'm not like in love with the name, but I do appreciate, the context and what you all are trying to do.
You know, Chad mentioned the distance, it is a quarter mile away, but the quarter mile in between there is Henley Street, Interstate, and it's all pavement and right of way. That's really the closest property, physical property to the asylum is the properties. I don't think there's anything in between those two, other than pavement and roadway. So,
Foundry and so forth.
yeah, everything is on track. But it's-
Well, and what do you think about moving with Asylum Avenue District and asking for KFD and KPD
To weigh in.
to weigh in?
Yeah, I mean, we could reach out to them and see if they have concerns. I think as opposed to the fire department specifically, I'd go straight to 911 because they're routing the
Okay.
calls, to specific agencies.
Okay.
Many years ago, when I was with the city, I worked with Colorado. Back in the day, they would put some little notes, notations in their files for things like these situations. I don't know if they still do that or not. Just so they know there's a KGIS, and they had a whole new book of things that might come up in this manner, and something called history come up, so maybe they still do that. I hope they do.
You raise a good concern because I do know in South Knoxville there's a Scarlet Lane and a Scarlet Court, and they're connected,
Yeah.
and they have the same street.
Yes.
And a gentleman almost died waiting for 911 because they thought he was on court and he was on lane. He was having a heart attack and phone on the floor. It's a real concern.
Yeah.
I have a question. So are the historical districts not in any of the systems, like, at all? Because even though the street name Asylum Avenue is not a street, but will it show historical districts in the database?
I don't know because I don't work at 911, so I'm not sure. My instinct is no, it doesn't, but I don't know for sure. They would have neighborhoods. I don't know how fine their data is.
There's no way around KGIS, and I think that's what one
Well,
of the references typically.
Yeah, and it's tricky because KGIS provides a lot of information to the public that is not used by 911. So I'm not sure if they're using neighborhoods. Now, responders know, because they're familiar with the area, but you have to remember they'll change, ambulance drivers change, captains of fire trucks, fill in for other people. And so even if they're familiar with the area, they may not be where they're stationed that particular day when you're calling. So to answer your question, I don't know if they've got, what they have exactly in their system.
Well, there are other city staff here. Do you all want to weigh in? You don't have to. Give a perspective on this.
I mean, I do see what she's saying about safety, and I guess if there is a possibility that street name, an official street name change would be pursued in the future, it would be cleared up at that time. And I would imagine if the street name is changed, then would we still have this historic sign as well, or would that go away? No, I would hope to keep it, the honorable Asylum Avenue District would stay there. I mean, once you name an area, you don't, I would want it to stay like that. I would not want it to change it to something else.
So it sounds like E911 would need to be consulted either way. And so we'll make sure that that's done, whatever we proceed with. Are there any other suggestions or discussion around that? Jack, what have you
My
made?
question, so you're saying that even if you go change the name of the street to Asylum Avenue, you still have Asylum Avenue District, both naming the same street? Is that what I'm understanding?
It's on the honorary.
Honorary Asylum Avenue.
Yeah, but one, if you change the street officially,
But the district would just be the area, the street would be just the one area right in front of the buildings that there is a street. But with that district, it's gonna connect all three of the buildings that are there on that property.
But what's the idea of the street name, like, that you would consider? Is it Asylum Avenue?
That would be the only, I mean, if
Okay, I
we
think that would-
pursued that, that would be renaming the street as it was originally, yeah.
Well, then maybe you don't need Asylum Avenue and then Asylum Avenue Street.
Yeah.
There is a good comparison though, because there's Market Street and Market Square to
Yeah.
that extent, so I mean, they can work together in other places of the city.
They're gonna have the same avenue. Market Square is different from Market Square. You know, the street would be, I'm like, what she said, having the duplicated, Asylum Avenue District,
Yes.
Asylum Avenue.
Yes.
So either be Asylum Avenue or Asylum District.
Well, that's not necessarily true because we have, our address is 28 Market Square, Knoxville, Tennessee, but it's the Market Square district that encompasses all the buildings that are on the square.
Understood.
So it'd be the same
Yeah.
thing.
Gotcha.
I do want to add, I had a long conversation one time with the late Al Hines, who ran the Hines, the equipment company down there for many years. And he had memories of the 20s and Asylum Avenue, what a lively, diverse place it was. And there were immigrants and black and white people living there. And it was not just one thing or another. There was a lot of stuff going on all at once. And was talking about what a lively place it was. And also, it was mentioned a couple times about James Agee as part of his, the writer James Agee and his Death of the Family and all that. That was part of his world, was Asylum Avenue. And there's the most famous walk in the book is the kid walking with his doomed father from downtown to their home, and they're walking down Asylum Avenue, part of that way. So it's got some resonance, Asylum Avenue itself as independent of the asylum. Which moved out there 24 was when they moved over to Alto.
So Jack, should I consider that as a formal motion to amend
Yeah.
the application to Asylum Avenue District? And
Pending, city council approval and all this sort of thing.
and 911's feedback. Okay, we have a motion. Does anyone want to second the motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Maynard. Any other discussion? There's been some good unforeseen questions to clarify, which is why you all are here, so thank you. Any other discussion on this? If not, we'll put forward a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. West.
Thank you.
Mr. Emmett. Moving next in our agenda, the only other item is consideration and approval of revised application. So, Mr. Johnson, would you maybe briefly describe what's on packet page 9? If you'll flip through your packet, you'll see some yellow highlighted areas.
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. At your last meeting in May, we discussed making some changes to the application. The thing I think the committee was most interested in was obtaining more background information, historical references from requesters, from applicants. So I've tried to incorporate that along with clear instructions as to how to complete the application. So the first 2 pages you'll see line-by-line instructions on how to complete the application. And on the 3rd page is the application itself, and the highlighted sections are some of the major changes I made to the application in terms of content. Number 6, that they tell us whether or not the person is living or not. We need some kind of acceptable proof that they are dead, deceased. And Section 8 being the one asking about historical references and documentation as to support their application.
So as a reminder, some of the context that was provided by the applicant today is not required. So I think some of the applications we had last year, we lacked some of that context. So we thought, well, let's put it formally in here. And then we, as a body, sat around and asked what items we need to put in here for that history. And so all of this is, will be a new requirement going forward if the committee approves this adjustment. I think there was a total of 5 suggestions, and I think most of them made their way into this new application. So as you scan that kind of gray area on packet page 9, you can see what Mr. Johnson just outlined.
What's the reason for asking for the death certificate? Has that come up in the past?
No, it's never come up, but, well, it seemed natural to ask for some kind of, whether it be an obituary, we don't need a death certificate. I don't think that's necessary, but,
Okay.
you know.
Because I guess I'm just wondering, is that something that's easily available to get,
An
or,
obituary?
yeah, I mean, depending on how long the person
Oh, that's
has
good, well, yes.
gone, or is it public record where you can get like some type of certificate to show that they're not alive anymore?
If they were a Knoxvillian, then Knoxville maintains obituaries as far back as they have them. Whether or not this committee thinks it's necessary, that's up to you all.
Well, I mean, it isn't a big mandatory, I guess, like, submit it as part of the packet, but if you don't have it, if it was somebody who lived 150 years ago, I think we can all pretty much assume.
Well,
But then I see what you're saying, but then I guess maybe we should note.
If available.
If available or
Okay.
something.
That was gonna be my question about everything under 8, is that if I were to get this form and read through it, I would think that I need to provide some sort of like public polling or something, and I feel like that could dissuade somebody from, if it's a small thing that they're trying to accomplish, it's like, what? I don't know, talking to my one neighbor and he was fine with it, like, it
Yeah.
feels like, from what I recall, I've certainly forgotten a lot since May, but it was more around, it would be nice to have, as opposed to, these are required things. And I would read this as, all the new highlighted sections are, you can't submit the application until we have all of it. Whereas, you know, to your point, it's like we're naming it after somebody, the Civil War era, like, well, I'm pretty sure they're not around anymore. We don't need you to provide proof of that, so that they are deceased. Same with some of these others, that this would all be helpful context to evaluate anything, but I don't know, especially the public engagement and polling, I feel like that may not have always, that wouldn't even have been applicable to this. There's not anybody near the property we just discussed to poll, really, so.
So something like, on a separate sheet, it is permissible to submit the following or something like.
Yeah, or
Something
like
that makes
on a
it
separate
like,
sheet, please provide as much of the following as able, or something
Yeah.
like that. I think that feels,
additional information that can be submitted would be the following.
yeah, but I don't recall exactly, like, it may have been that we wanted all this mandatory. I thought it was more, this would be helpful, as opposed to required.
Well, I thought the last meeting, it was a piece of property or a community that was trying to make a change, and we wanted to make sure that the community didn't
That's
have
right.
a problem with it.
That's right.
It was, you know, so it was more than just naming something. Was the community agreeable to you doing this because it affected everybody?
Yeah, of the
Specific-
things that, on this list that jump out to me the most, if it's got an existing name, like, why should we change it? To me, that seems pretty important.
Yeah, to your point, Ms. Deckers, it was, that particular aspect of public engagement was around, this meeting publicly noticed, we're all here, but I even had somebody this morning say I couldn't find on the internet where you all are meeting. So these could get renamed until, now you fast forward 3 months and we're putting up the brown honorary sign, and the 2 neighbors on the other side of the street weren't even notified or asked if they have a problem with X person that lived long ago and threw a rock through their door, you know? So that's not necessarily a justification to keep it, it's just the reason why it was there, so just recalling that.
That discussion.
So it sounds like one of the things I'm hearing is that we could say it is encouraged to provide, or it is permissible, or, I mean, the consequence of not providing it is that this committee has a harder time with it if that issue arises, or we're left with our own bit of research that don't have time for, or that we rely on Jack to live forever. So I think, some context is important.
I think so too, but I think the magnitude of what we're naming is probably going to take care of itself on that, because if it's just, the more controversial it is, or the greater significance it is, generally the greater the effort behind it is going to be, and so they're going to provide all this documentation because you're going to want to make sure it goes. But and I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Ramsey's point, if it's just somebody who's trying to name something small,
Yeah.
we don't want them to be discouraged from doing that.
True.
So I think that the nature of the process will take care of who's actually submitting this stuff there. And we have a commission, if we don't feel like there's adequate resource behind it, then we don't have to vote.
So based on this language, does anybody have a suggested edit you'd like to propose?
Maybe you could say, if available on a separate sheet of paper, please provide the following.
Okay.
I do think that the more robust an application comes through, the easier, or, then we don't have to delay to say, oh, no, this is a type of project that we would like you to survey the area. With that said, I guess, yes, if available on a separate sheet of paper, but I don't know if we could put some nuance in there, it helps make the application process better.
Well, like for additional consideration or for expedited consideration.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, not that, on the note of asking everybody to live forever, Mr. Johnson does encourage people to provide this information when they contact him, so there is another level of special request, encouragement to provide that context for, for these same reasons. And the other thing is, I think that's a good edit, so whatever you said,
If available.
if available, we'll consider that a motion. But the other thing I think that's really good, and thank you, Mr. Johnson, for adding this, is that I think it prompts a thought, seeing some of these things in here. So it may not be a hard requirement, but it may be, oh, maybe I do need to ask the neighbor. Right? They may think of it as a small thing.
Yeah.
It may be bigger, but by seeing these types of things, it will trigger them to think of the ramifications beyond their good intention. So I think these are good changes.
I think so too. For number 7, can we add what acceptable proofs of death might be?
I do that in the instructions, actually. If you'll go back to the first page, I list obituary, death certificate, news story, or historical citation.
Okay. Maybe just on the application, say something like, please attach this, because people don't read.
I understand.
Please attach this application,
Cultural problem.
one of the listed acceptable proof, just make reference in
I
this
can
thing.
get it.
Yeah, that we had already. When I say people don't read, I was including myself in that, because the answer to the question was just read it. That was a bit of a case in point there.
So Ms. Harper mentioned adding an amendment to number 7. Excuse me, number 8, if available. Can I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Second. Any other discussion on that one? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, there's one. And then Mr. Reed, would you clarify your motion?
I moved that on item 7, we add the words, or we amended to say, please attach to this application one of the previously listed or already listed acceptable proof of death for a natural person.
I'll second that. Any discussion or objection to that? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, 2 good edits. Thank you for that. Okay, we have a more robust application that sets this committee up for success and helps the applicant. No other items on the agenda. Any other questions or concerns before we conclude? All right, seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.